If you have knowledge, let others light their candles in it. Thomas Fuller. Success is the ability to rise after falling. Obstacles and failures are effective tools on the path that turns a person into an individual who is able to achieve the desired. Struggle is the father and truly the king of all. Ihor Bombushkar. Many years ago, an American investor and author, Robert Kiyosaki, did use a formula according to which 95% of all money in the world belonged to 5% of the most active and influential people. The remaining 5% of money is shared among the rest 95% of the planet's population. Actually, this horrifying disproportionate distribution of funds is the demonstration of a natural selection. According to the Bible, you only get what you deserve. No one can change this equation. Fortunately, making equal everyone is nothing more than delusion and utopia. However, anyone who sets a greater purpose and ready to act gets a possibility to become a selected one. This man set such a goal. Many years ago, he left the parental home without a penny in his pocket. He went through poverty, pain, betrayal, and received things he strove for. He received not only money but also the unique power and energy which he is willing to share with anyone who is in need. His life is a study book of the history of success. Each chapter in it is one step of the stairway to realization of goals and dreams. In order to possess transcendent powers, its laws and subtleties, first the one must have material welfare. If a magician has not mastered the material, he is not able to move toward the beyond. That's why I find an important criteria for a magician and his powers the level of his well-being or his level of material welfare. You can't define as a magician a person who trains how to make money but takes subway, bus, tram or taxi. Because if he can't provide for himself material sufficiency, he hasn't got enough wit and particularly powers. One of the most common and at the same time beautiful forms of existence is a crystal. Most of inorganic materials are formed by crystal. Crystals or gems are the most liquid and valuable goods in the world. They are called magic stones and give special powers to their holders. They are inaccessible to ordinary mortals. Besides, very few people know that a crystal can be grown in ordinary glass. How? Let's not rush for the answer. At first you have to walk through all steps of the way and then get what you are looking for. This film has been made for 7 years in Ukraine. During this time, the country has changed beyond its recognition. The man who will be introduced soon has also changed together with the world. One thing remains unchanged, that's his commitment to his goals. What kind of goals? Learn and understand them during next 90 minutes of this film. It is a great story of a magical success that can put millions back on their feet and have hundreds of thousands from death. I want all people to grow and develop. I wish my students could surpass me. I'll try to put all efforts to share my personal example among people so they could grow. Therefore, the uniqueness here is that I'm gonna illustrate myself from the inside out. I'll show things that nobody has ever showed, the sanctum sanctorum of my soul. 15 years ago, a brilliant scholar, a professor of medical institute in Donetsk city, and author of books and videos on practical surgery, Ihor Bombushkar suddenly left the Department of Operative Surgery and moved to Kiev. He started a new life with a clean slate, more precisely from scratch. And even after moving to Kiev, I had to rent new apartments over and over again. As soon as the landlords knew I was a magician, I made herbs, they turned me out immediately. and I worshipped the forces begging to give me a chance. Instead, I would toil and moil day and night. I was given a chance to take a rather unfair loan from a local Ukrainian bank. That's how I bought my first 2 apartments, and after some time I became an owner of 4. 2014, magician Ingwar, after long hesitation, agreed on filming in his apartment. Until now, he has never let anyone in his private life. Why did this mysterious man decide to break the vow of seclusion? No one has ever been at this place. Here you can see how Ingwar lives, how he spends sleepless nights. Here's the place where he sleeps. Here you can find out more about magician's life. People who dedicate themselves to serve the magic rarely earn good money due to their gift. There are many reasons, such as the impracticability, inability to work with people, laziness, or because of following certain principles that contradict possession of material wealth. Ingwar also doesn't earn money just to possess it. For him, prosperity is a measure of success. It's simple. A person who achieved nothing has no right to guide others. I've got luxury items, jewelry, the most expensive, by the way. This is worth about $20,000 US. When I was buying it, I didn't regret a penny. This is white gold and high-quality diamonds. I could buy 2 flats in my hometown, Ingwar city. While I was paying $10,000 US for this ring, I had a thought that it was worth the value of 1 apartment. It is very important for me to have accommodation, because I'm from Ingwar and I always remember my origins. Actually, I'm not such a tight-fisted person, so when I had the opportunity to buy this, I bought it with a great pleasure for me. He led strangers into this world to prove that each his word is supported by hard work, and the achieved result is also due to his work. I meet with very wealthy people, I meet with great business people. I need to be on the same wavelength. I use the most expensive perfume in the world. I spent $1,300 on this bottle, Clive Christian. I love its fragrance and I really paid $1,300 for it. Well, I'd like to have some soulfulness. It's better for me to fall deeply into the atmosphere of warmth with a girl for 2 or 3 hours, you know. I love Kilian brand. It's incredible peach smell. It's called Mad Love. I gave for it less than $500. Do you think it's the opposite? Attributes of his personal success are not the least important for him. Neither Ingwar ends up in them. Almost all of his assets, which worth about $1 million US, he spent on the implementation of the most important task of his life, the project of assistance to HIV-infected. You already can find out the results of how this project changes the lives of people who found themselves doomed. But to understand how a scientist, a magician and a healer could reach these goals, you need to walk along this path with him. You'll spend a bit more than an hour to view his whole life. There is so-called magician Ingwar school, but to be brief, I'd like to draw your attention to 2 important things. It doesn't matter what my followers do, they should always remember that to achieve something, they need to create conditions as well as opportunities. If there are no conditions and opportunities, all efforts end up in the ass. Growth is only possible when you have these 2 components. There is no result when magician has no conditions, as well as there is no result when there are no conditions at work. Everything is related to each other. Why am I speaking on my behalf? Why do you ask to follow? Because I achieved what I wanted. So the others can achieve the same or even more. It's important to have a guide. I used to have one before. The man who had no equals among the holders of extraordinary powers. Can you guess who I'm talking about? 25 years ago, this man, during live conference Moscow-Kiev by the power of thought, made anesthesia during the surgery. The patient didn't feel the pain. Later, he traveled around the country and healed infirm patients during one session. It was magic and also science. He was a magician, but at the same time a doctor, a scientist, as I am now.
Как я сейчас. Для того, чтобы к этим техникам прикоснуться, для того, чтобы к ним подойти, нужно...
In order to feel and approach these techniques, you need to have something in your pocket.
чтобы уже
I must have been prepared to meet Kashpirovsky.
встретиться с Кашпировским, нужно...
I had to be ready to look into the eyes of a man who meant a lot to my life.
Для меня очень много значит в жизни.
And even after the first day of our meeting, he told me to fuck off.
Он меня в первый день послал.
I learned from him how to get what I wanted. I also made our meeting happen against his will. Well, now we are friends.
Мы друзья. Мне был интересен Кашпировский.
I was interested in Kashpirovsky.
И он...
I went to Simferopol city and he was like a rabbit when he saw this gesture. He sat into my car and could not even utter a word. When I wanted just to talk like ordinary people do, without magic and hypnosis, he said, "No, oh no." The next day I arrived and he came closer to me like a rabbit approaches a python, sat in the car and didn't even make a sound. And when we drove off, I told him about our yesterday's conversation. He didn't even show a sign that he was in my power, outwitted and outplayed. There was no single facial expression, muscle or eyebrow movement. When I looked in the mirror, I saw his assistant and the back seat was terrified. She thought I was a taxi driver at Citroen car. Well, actually, a taxi driver arrived in 15 minutes, but Kashpirovsky was already in my car.
Оказался в машине. В свое время он был предан...
Once he was anathematized and later betrayed even by those whom he healed,
был гораздо выше, чем
Kashpirovsky had much higher rating than Yeltsin did.
спокойно.
He could easily become a Russian president, easy. The church didn't let him, and for all those 20 years he's been trying to whitewash and prove that he's different. He tries to tell people, to the mankind, that he came to this world with no aim of hurting people but of rejuvenation. His system is a unique one, and one day the mankind will start using this system. But he'll be gone by then, as he said himself. I came too early, but too late. Through the years, the church rejected Ingwar in the same way as it rejected Kashpirovsky before.
Я, кстати, вчера...
Incidentally, yesterday I found out that the Russian Orthodox Church officially pronounced an anathema against me, so I'm on the anathematized list. And I liked it so much, I will write an article and express my gratitude. It's true indeed, I'm a cursed man, and I'm glad to receive this honor.
такой чести.
Curse and walking on the edge of the abyss is the payment for his success. What's the first thing to do in practical work in black witchcraft? It all starts with a perfectly detailed plan, a thorough outline. So the first step is taking the earth from graves. You must come to the cemetery, take the earth properly and remain calm. This is a training demo in Ingwar's Academy of Universal Magic, Healing and Witchcraft. What graves do you have to use? The graves of those who did not die a natural death, like suicides, hanged, drowned. That is, those people whom the church didn't perform funeral service. For a man, try to choose a man's grave, and it would be ideal if the names match. It's the same for the females. If the names don't match, find the freshest grave. This recording was made in 2007. That time, Ingwar was extremely reluctant to give interviews to reporters. He didn't want his lectures were heard by the uninitiated. How many packs of tea does a person need to drink in a year, and how many packs will you give for free? At present, I made 10,000 packs, and everyone infected with HIV who is willing to accept it from me, I will give 3 packs for free. Several years have passed. Now Ingwar is a frequent guest on television. However, he prefers to talk about mundane affairs, about his project to fight AIDS, about the events that changed the world, about his attempts to make the world a better place. It's interesting to listen to him, but it's even more interesting to observe how he reaches his goals and guides others. I'm from a very poor family in Ugledar city. You saw my parents. When I enrolled in medical university, I wandered around dormitories, shitty dorms as I call them. Within 6 years at the institute and a year of internship, I changed probably 11 places for living in Donetsk city. As you see, I was covered in mud all the time. These miserable huts, bums, dirt and cockroaches. I went through it all. All these shitty dorms with 3-4 people in a room, and I like order and discipline. I like to have everything on its place. All books must be arranged on shelves. And I love when a fridge makes no sound. Actually, you can know that my fridge doesn't make a noise. It's very important to me. There should be no noise. In his life, there is no place for contingencies and trivia. This tour around his house is the key to conceive his motivation. Ingwar is the only magician among surgeons. He is a brilliant scientist who did not want to comply with the injustice of the system. Now he is one of the most respected masters of his work in the world. Magicians from all countries gather in his black castle. They share secrets, teach and learn from each other. Then how could he comprehend and combine so many components of success? What has he passed? How did he manage to survive? The worst thing that happened in my life, and I can be honest with myself and look through all those years I can remember, perhaps when I saw my dad, my beloved father, on the autopsy table. My father died on my hands in 2002 on my birthday, and it was probably the scariest thing. I saw an eviscerated body. Can you imagine that I saw a man who raised me, who starved and invested in me, the man who loved me, the man who was cruel? He was a nationalist, so-called Bandera. The man who loved me to destruction, who doted on his son. He died at the age of 66. And I saw the open skull. I saw an eviscerated body, and you can't be ready for this. I couldn't be ready for this. The fact that my father died at my hands is one thing, but the fact that I saw him disemboweled, thorax, abdomen, head, it was too much. It's a painful picture. I believe that this shouldn't be shown. Here? I was born in the city with rough life, where impossible to become a person who I became. Sometimes I come back only because she waits for me, my dear and beloved mother. So why did you give me the birth so late? That's because I did not live well and your brother Yuri had a bad health. I could not get pregnant for a long time. And then I was pregnant at 34 and it was hard to give a birth because of the appendicitis. Thanks God I gave you a birth. My father was a miner, one of the exiles. My mom is an ordinary woman who worked as a janitor all her life. And I was a weirdo who didn't belong here. There was nothing good out of my difference because people in Ugledar always disgraced smart guys. A midwife who wrapped me in a diaper told my mom that I was special. I'm used to hear these words often, sometimes said with warmth and respect, but sometimes with anger and irony. When I was in the maternity house, I shared a room with another woman, and she said, "You have to take good care of your son before he grows up. And if you do that, he'll grow up and become a great man." Ugledar city was founded in 1964. Almost all of male citizens work at the city mines, names number 1 and number 3 South Donbass. It's a hard and dangerous work. Every day, his dad went to work not knowing he would have come back or not. Ingwar was raised by his mother and the street. Mom, how come my relatives are so stupid and silly, but I had a will for studying? How could it happen? People can't believe it. My father was a very intelligent, as well as all my brothers. So it appears that my grandfather was intelligent, and all my brothers were, but not the sisters. We lived in the same neighborhood, and perhaps we were of similar age and had similar goals to achieve something in life. Well, I'm talking generally. I mean, we wanted something to change in ourselves. That is, we wanted to do sports instead of drinking alcohol. Alex is a man who I've always respected, respect and will respect. He's my best buddy. We grew up together, together escaped, but achieved the success separately. Well, it doesn't matter. The main thing is we found what we were searching for. We grew up together with Alex, and we know each other from the age of 6. This is a man who prioritized job and order first. And his mom, Lydia, she was an ordinary woman and worked as a teacher. That is, he's from a very poor family, but gradually moved forward step by step, just like me. But he's very smart. He graduated school with honors. He was always an A student from the first grade. I received only F's in the primary school, and teachers wanted to leave me at the same grade because I was a complete idiot at the first and second grade. But he was a top of the class student till the graduation. He graduated with honors. Alex is an intellectual plus a professional businessman. I constantly criticized him because he wasn't careful with the finances. I recall one day I told him to think over what he was doing with the finances, to write a financial plan on a piece of paper. And he was like a flash. Igor is guided by emotions, and I'm more pragmatic. Even in this respect, we are different. I rather more down to earth. Yes, he calls me sluggish or a plotter, because I'm more interested in handwork. Apparently, I want to get the real product, touch it, make it, and Ingwar is more kind of a creative guy. Overcoming. That's how Ugledar city is associated with me. A small piece of land lost in the middle of nowhere. There's nothing to look at except mine hips. In summer, the city was burning by the heat. In winter, was buried in the snow. To live there and get respect, I had to overcome myself. To escape that place, I had to overcome Ugledar inside myself. I was a terrible swimmer. I would never forget how some people who are dead by now taught me swimming. They put me on a snake and then threw me. I almost drowned, but they burst out laughing. I was so scared, a great amount of water filled my lungs. I was very scared. So, how did I start fighting my own fear? I climbed a tree up to about 15 meters and said to myself, all people dive, so I can do it too. But the waters were very deep, and I could swim badly. So I said to myself, you must dive. You won't drown, because somehow you would be able to swim. And I dived. But before making it, I cheated myself without saying, you must do it. I said to myself, you must make a step forward. There was a time when my peer, a robust guy, Igor Savan, beat me. I didn't strive for retaliation, I just went to gym. A month later I could do the splits, and in a year I could fight with anyone. But the sport wasn't a self-purpose. There were a lot of athletes like Igor, Sergei, Alexeyev, Roman Dmitrichenko. So what? People lived without a purpose. They are all dead by now. Overdose, AIDS, got frozen in the snow. Well, snow. I think the most severe winters are in Ukraine, as well as the biggest drifts. You wouldn't believe me if you'd never come here. This is Ugledar's outskirts. Mines are part of the landscape, roads, fields, and snow. And that is the cemetery. I often come here.
после смерти? Ты когда
Mom,
умрешь,
what's
что
gonna
ты
be
думаешь?
after death? You will die and then what?
Потом, что всё, ты же вроде
You
как
believe in
верующий
God, so
человек, там.
what do
Что
priests
там
tell you?
батюшки вам кажут?
Will you
Ты
go
в
to
рай
heaven
там
or
или в
hell?
ад?
What's
Что
gonna
там
be
будет
next?
дальше? Ты не знаешь?
I don't know.
Ну так а ты веришь в это, что ты потом будешь там
So,
уже
do you believe
идущий,
you'll go to heaven or hell?
где-нибудь там?
Don't know, my son, I really don't.
А скажи мне, вот когда ты умрешь,
Have you prepared
что там,
something
что-то
for your
наготовил
funeral?
себе уже, да, или что?
Yes, I have already prepared the clothes.
А квартиру
Are you gonna
продавать?
sell this apartment? Sure, I will. Do you want me to live in Ugldarr city? No. What job will you have here? No vacancies in town? There is not much work around. There is a mine, but if it closes down, there is nothing to do around. But you wanted me to stay here and work at the mine pit, and now you've changed your mind, right, Mom? Oh, well, okay, I understand. Just don't leave my little Yuri. He's with me, Mom. I promised my dad, and now I promise you that Yuri will be always with me. He tries his best, helps, appreciates, and loves. I will help him and his children. Why would you help his kids? They have to make their own living. Yes, they have to, but someone must give advice and guide them. Okay, I appreciate giving the advice, but it's better if you help your own family. Could I think that my hometown would become a memorial place, a town with a graveyard? When my mom passes away, I will take no place to come, except the cemetery.
Насчет страха, я делаю все возможное.
Speaking about the fear, I try to do my best to get rid of it from my life.
Не может в жизни мага.
It bothers me. There is no place for fear in the life of a magician. I was afraid of death when I was a child, and I'd never forget how I eradicated that feeling. I was in high school, grade 9 or 10, when I said to myself, I can overcome this fear when I spent alone a night with 3, 4, or 5 deceased in one room. I had to go a long way. And then just during my senior year in the medical institute, there were 5 or 4 corpses in the sectional hall. The department was closed and I stayed there alone with them all night long. And I will never forget that night with these deceased. And only after that I said to myself, I have overcome my fear. These people are gone. I knew them for many years. They passed when they were young. Symbolically, Ugldarr is a new city but without a future. And people die here at young age, so I left it. Then I was not afraid to die, all the more I'm not afraid now. Back then I just didn't have knowledge, now I do. And I want to share it with people. I want people to live. I know for sure I can be gone at any moment. And most importantly, I'm ready for this. I don't cling to life. That's okay if I die in next minute, so in 50 or 100 years. That's all right with me. Because every second, every minute for giving me time, I live to the highest extent, and I'm willing to gain most of information and knowledge about this world in order to share this knowledge with the others. It's not terrifying to die when you've reached your goals and gained knowledge. I know how much longer I would live, but I wish no one to possess this knowledge. I know exactly that I can die any moment, and now it's very easy to make it happen, to make me leave this place. It's so easy to return to the place I came from just to become a person I was. I can just go back to Ugldarr city and stay there, live with those people in the same neighborhood. Unlike those who lived aimlessly, I knew from the primary school what I wanted. I wanted to be a doctor to heal my poor mother. I'd never forget how I visualized to have a huge hospital and many patients visit me, and I'm able to provide medical assistance for all illnesses. I wanted to heal everyone. That means, since my childhood, I had a clear, thoughtful goal in my head. I knew exactly what I wanted and how I wanted. There are 4 factors: right thought, knowledge, discipline, and a distinct goal vision. I was a high school student and could not become a doctor, but I could be a herbalist. I was the most assiduous and most grateful reader at the library. I knew how to listen and remember, and by the 8th grade I knew about herbs which grew in our region more than anyone in town. Igor and I lived in the same apartment building. Igor studied herbs since his childhood, so he was an excellent herbalist, but on the physical level. I strongly recommended everyone to appreciate him and his abundant knowledge of herbs. He knew when to collect, at what phase of the moon. I invited Igor for a conversation with one man. They had a talk and started active cooperation. Afterwards, they started a mutual cooperation in supplying medical herbs for magical spells. One famous Donbass herbalist, a teacher, passed Ingwar secrets for making healing potions. My teacher devoted all his life to herbs and passed on his knowledge to me. He was a Baptist. Well, I had many teachers. One was Yakhnovich, who taught me surgery. The second was the herbalist, who taught me herbal craft. The third was Mikhail, who taught me black magic. The fourth was Mahatma, who taught me cosmo energy. This one taught me herbs and often asked me for advice. And what's interesting, he asked me for some other herbs, because in the 11th grade I had already traveled around Ukraine. And when I studied in college, I could afford to travel and collect herbs. I knew that herb grew in what part of Ukraine. There are 180 components of herbs in my office. I used to date 180 components. Hippocrates used 200, and I want to surpass Hippocrates. Learn from respecting. Take the best from them and surpass them. I follow this principle all my life. Try to follow it too. If you can surpass me, then I manage to reach your heart. This old man had 50 years of experience in herbs. He was extremely popular in the Donetsk region. I had 130 components at my last year in high school, and he had 70. That is, I had already surpassed my teacher. And he was very proud of me and always said, "Igor, you have a great future, you are very smart and you're already stronger than me. But how is it possible?" He added, "We've been known each other for 3 years and during this short time you've grown up." And he used to ask me for advice. But why? Because I was always the follower of Avicenna, who was a mentor for scientists. On planet Earth, Avicenna is the only title as a scientist's mentor. And I've always wanted to be like him. I wanted to know everything. So many gray-bearded old men lined up to get advice from Avicenna. So perhaps in some way I was able to work similar to him. May 2014, Ingwar was personally making a unique precious portion in Kiev's apartment. Gem from pine cones. Only few know the recipe of this portion. Now I take out one pine cone to show you that the gem is ready, when all other cones will be like this one. Look, the cone is open and this is very important. Many cones inside are still closed. You need to reheat it for another 15 minutes tomorrow. Also, I need to adjust and measure precisely sugar concentration, because if I put too much sugar, it will thicken and will not be useful. That is, I need to add sugar according to the conditions. You need to check the consistency of the liquid, as well as constantly monitor the color. Now you can see pink color. It can be a little darker, but no more than. Each gram of this gem is worth its weight in gold. It cures severe chronic forms of respiratory diseases. Bronchitis, pneumonia, cough, angina, laryngitis, tracheitis, laryngotracheitis. All illnesses relate to the respiratory system. Essential oils and other resins are found in great quantities in these cones. There is nothing stronger than its smell. The portion has effect only if you collect cones during the first triad of the month. And if you're late to collect the cones, there is no effect. He spends 1 week in the woods and 3 days in the kitchen. Every year he does it during the first week of May. It can be made quickly, in a few minutes. That's the whole process, which takes 3 or 4 days. Wash fresh cones, add some sugar. Sugar must be at the ratio of 1:1 to cones. It's impossible to make a lot of the portion because it is really a pain in the neck. I spent about 3 or 4 days to cook this jam. I knew that there were some people who possessed magical knowledge and therefore special powers. One of them was Ustug, a young, moody, mysterious miner. People came to consult with me on magical and witchcraft issues. Some asked for commonplace problems, like removing wards, but some visited to punish the criminals, like rapists and thieves. I mean, people were dissatisfied knowing that the criminal was behind the bars for raping their daughter. They wanted all his relatives to be dead. Not a big deal. If I'm confident that a certain person is guilty, I take all actions and perform work with black energy. I find magic to be the highest level of skills to self-consciously control the events in my own life. That is, magic in the first place is the skill. The skill is knowledge, and knowledge is science. You should not mix it with visualization and dreaming. It's a science. The highest level is the ability to control the events of your own life. That is, when you talk about a magician and he is not able to control the events of his own life, that's it. You've got the criteria for disclosure. He is not a magician. Igor surpassed all of us. I don't want to announce the names of people because some of them are successful, even here in Ugledar city. Let's say among all these people, Igor has overcome all of us. There is a well-known true story among jewelers about the largest sapphire that was used to support the door. So Igor is that sapphire to us. Alex introduced me to the teacher Mikhail, who was the most powerful holder of knowledge, not only in Ugledar city, but also in the entire region. My teacher, Mikhail, taught me exactly for 1 year after the high school. That is, he gave me knowledge and supported with information. So I was prepared to see the things that I saw. I don't know what could have happened if I had seen those things without being a magician. He wanted to possess the power, but the master prevented him and said, "First you need to know yourself and what surrounds you." My master Mikhail always stopped me. I said to him, "Mikhail, I'd like to enter astral plane. You just entered it, right?" "Yes, I have, but how? Show me some techniques." "Igor, you don't need these techniques now. As long as you have not studied all that is associated with this terrestrial life, the planet Earth, until you won't understand and absorb it like the milk of your mother, what the hell you need the astral for?" That's how I gained the basic knowledge. Then I began to develop and grind away at my books. I always wanted to become a doctor, and I became. Parents had to sell out an apartment and they got into huge debts, so I could be a junior at the medical institute. But there I felt like a duck in the water. There I met my best pal Evgeny. We attended classes during the day, and in the evening we did self-learning in our student society. There are two aspects. It's such an intensive work at the operative surgery department in the framework of so-called student scientific society. There are lots of sleepless nights related to the preparation and conduction of experiments. A lot of time is spent on theoretical aspects, like reading scientific literature, communication with experts who provide consultation. On the other hand, it was also such a fruitful collaboration on our life pursuits at that moment. We were quite actively interested in ideology, psychology, esotericism, and we read a lot of literature together. Learning was easy. Head of the operative surgery department, Ms. Simanova, took patronage over our study group, and I passed all exams almost automatically. After the graduation, I stayed at the department, pulling all the scientific work. At the age of 25, I gained authority among colleagues, made over 20 video tutorials on surgery, but at the same time I felt the approach of the depression. I saw how patients were treated in our hospitals. I knew that the head of the department was using me and wasn't willing to promote me, otherwise I could leave or take her place. It was a hard time for me. I had never felt like that before. Actually, no, once I experienced similar. Fear and things I'm talking about now are very similar. But is it true for me? This is the hardest internal condition that I've ever experienced. I've got a girlfriend, Natalia. We've been dating for 8 years and she's done really a lot in my life. When this girl asked my permission to sleep with another guy, well, it was terribly bad. But I really appreciated the honesty in life. I really appreciated the candor in life. So I let this girl to cheat on me, but I'd never forget how badly it hurt. Well, I knew I had cheated on her. I told her honestly that I wanted to try another girl. I told her the truth. We trusted each other, and I don't know how to live with a partner without trust. So, when she asked my permission to sleep with another guy, I eventually felt a dreadful pain. Depression is not some kind of fiction. Depression is unbearable, which has only one way out, a suicide. No one could help me out, even my closest friends. Recalling that period in our lives, it seems to me that I didn't help him a lot, just a little. Due to certain processes of formation of the psyche and world outlook, I personally consider myself not mature enough at that time. I was still growing. And probably then, I did not give him all that I could give, I guess, because of my immaturity, both ideological and psychological. You remember the quote by Pushkin, "Experience, the son of painful errors." The question is how to overcome this. That is, if you perceive it naturally and can move on with it and glean something from it, which is hard to do, it's all right. If you don't understand this, then doesn't matter what you do, you would come back to this again and become a complete idiot. I and Natalia went through this and overcame troubles that separated us. We are still a couple. Every man, no matter how strong or weak he is, and whatever occupation he's got in life, his attitude toward women, attitude toward life has its own role. It's undeniable that a man's or a male's love, or to define it as infatuation, provokes certain urges to action. And that was such a burst, and it went on and on.
Думаю, депрессия в данном случае показатель определенного уровня духовного развития человека. Вы говорите, что
I think that in this case the depression indicates a certain level of spiritual development of an individual.
Я считаю, что
because the depression is not typical for people from rural areas. And I also believe that depression is probably more typical for people of lower spiritual level. For people with greater spiritual and life experience, a depression is just a certain stage of the spiritual growth. In my opinion, at this stage, some important moments must be summarized. You just have to hold on and consider something. And probably due to the discomfort that depression gives, people are encouraged to make some decisions. I was the best scholar not only at the department but also at the institute. So what? It was a dead end. The head of the department was going to set me up in her game with the cops. To simplify, she wanted to convince me for bribery. I didn't take any bribes because I could not do it, though I was desperately in need for money. Therefore, my instinctive honesty saved me.
Игорь человек практически бескомпромиссный.
Igor is an almost uncompromising person. Medicine, when we talk about the traditional one that we've been familiar with for 200 years, has a very rigid hierarchy. If you are fairly uncompromising and don't know how to incorporate, it's almost impossible to survive. That is, if you want to reach the top in the already established hierarchy, you need to play by certain rules. There are certain laws which are called the laws of the hierarchy, and if you don't follow them, the hierarchy will automatically throw you out. I believe that's what happened with Igor, because he couldn't simply fit into that system, and perhaps he didn't need that. I quit my job in Donetsk and moved to Kiev. Basically, I ended up nowhere. I was in a big city with no job, friends, or shelter. I had only the power of will and knowledge. My magic. In my doctrine, awareness and understanding play a great role, and that's something you can touch, feel, weight. That is visible. Therefore, I pay a lot of attention to religions. So I consider that initially people or prophets who brought these religions, they definitely came with a clear purpose and were incarnated on this planet Earth to bring understanding of certain truth to people. And there must have been crystallization. That is, people had to crystallize certain qualities: conscience, justice, honesty, self-criticism, a vision of a payback if you deceive someone, or karma. People identify magic with the witchcraft from fairy tales. That's a mistake. Magic is scientific and practical, similar to medicine, at which I spent 20 years of my life. The right thought is the most important. All people without exception, and I sometimes make errors. We don't differentiate thoughts from dreams. That is the element of deliberate actions from the element from sensitive actions. Feelings and thoughts are two different things. Therefore, the main pillar, the main recipe, and the main ingredient in the recipe of my doctrine is the technique of right thought. After moving to the capital, I was forced to do the most difficult and thankless task, retail business. It was 100 times worse than working at the coal mine, but I stood the test and never deviated from the chosen path. We were at the same level of the achievements. Everything we reached was only due to our own work. We did not have rich parents, friends, or sponsors. All what happened in our lives was because previously, when we were young, we ran miles in marathon all year round. Each person has his own path, and definitely that's his mission. Especially it refers to people like Igor. I think people like him are missionaries,
Миссионеры, я считаю, прежде
and he refers to the missionaries.
всего. Он, относится
He's a
к
bright
да,
example of
среди
such people.
ярких примеров таких людей.
Even during most difficult times, Ingwar never stopped his studies of magic. It wasn't a witchcraft, it was rather hard work, endeavors to master the dark powers.
В том, что
The point is that when a magician or a wizard, the difference is not so important, asks for powers, he realizes that powers gives him an opportunity. If he thinks a power can bring him money, he's under delusion.
вот так вот деньги будут,
That's too Harry Pottery, very childish, I'd say a feat of purity.
сила дает
The
возможность.
power gives you an opportunity, an option, but only a magician himself must sweat his guts out. If I do nothing, then no spells, no devils, no demons, no gods will do anything to help me. Ingwar works alone. Each spell, protective ritual or love spell takes up his energy. That's a very hard work, but grateful. Ingwar hasn't been looking for visitors for quite a long time. They find the magician on their own. I love carpets because I often come home late at 2 or 3 a.m. without having energy and a desire to make a bed. I can fall and sleep right here, so it's always perfectly clean. That is, I love to have an opportunity to sleep on the carpet, so I can take a pillow and fall asleep straight away. It's great. That's so nice when I'm exhausted from work and I can fall asleep on the floor. A magician's workday is similar to a workday of an ordinary doctor at the hospital.
Когда я на работе,
When I'm at my workplace and I officially work from 9 to 9, that is 12 hours a day, I'm all into people. I'm a social person.
людей, я общаюсь,
I meet people, communicate with them, answer phone calls. I'm a very active user of social networks.
учить людей.
I love teaching people things which I experienced in past to make them stronger and wiser.
Я прихожу сюда,
But when I come home, I have to recover myself for the next working day.
рабочего дня.
Without a proper recovery, I won't be able to work effectively the next day.
Следующий день.
Ingwar is a magician and a scientist. He doesn't notice anything strange in this combination. On the contrary, he is proud to be the only surgeon among magicians with academic degrees in scientific studies, which students use to learn the basis of surgery and psychiatry.
Магия — это наука, но наука прежде всего.
Magic is a science, but science is primarily linked to the result and duration of someone's life.
Живет как последний
If someone lives like a scum or jerk, well, what kind of magic can be there?
себя, чему он может обучить?
If he hasn't done a damn thing for himself, what could he teach others?
Если он ходит,
Besides,
перепаливает,
what has he reached?
он курит, пьет,
If he walks and falls apart, if he smokes, drinks, sniffs, how can he mentor students? None of the students can become different. In his library, medicine studies coexist peacefully with books on esotericism and frightened magical attributes.
У меня даже было время, когда
Once there was even a coffin here, a very large one.
и он даже
You could
закрывался.
open and close it.
Закрывался.
It was difficult to breathe, so I got rid of it.
Поэтому
Well,
стало.
I need to install a proper conditioning and soundproof systems one day.
Это супер.
After moving to Kiev City, a certified surgeon, a talented scientist Ihor Bombushkar, at the same time magician Ingwar, for some time had to work as a security guard and then as a sales assistant in a plumbing shop. During that time, he had only one relief when he went to workouts in the largest open-air gym located in the capital's hydro park.
Здесь есть элемент этого пути, поскольку
There is an element of this path because there is no success without a healthy body.
поскольку
A healthy body is not just given.
оно тоже просто так не
A
дается.
healthy body should be
Его
created.
нужно создавать.
You have to sweat over it.
Здоровье — это
Health is an
дорогая роскошь.
expensive
Она
luxury
просто так не
thing.
дается.
It is not just given.
А здесь,
And
в этом
here,
месте,
in this place, you can
можно
become
к
healthy and
этому здоровью
strong
прийти.
by working
Работа над
out.
собой.
First time I came here by the will of fate. That day I came to Kiev to have a date with my girlfriend. Before the train arrival I had a few hours left, so I decided to go around the city. I had a date with my girlfriend Natalia. She was arriving back from Germany. And accidentally, when I was riding a train to the left bank of the river in the city, I saw some flowers were shaped in the form of her name, Natalia. I came to that place. It was in 1996, when I was a sophomore. So I came back and I blissed out. When I saw people united by one goal, when I saw they had stars in their eyes, when I saw that they were all obsessed with health, strength, I fell in love with this place. Ingwar is a man of substance. He can afford to become a member of any fitness center in Kiev, but he's never even thought about that. Just at this place he generates the energy. Here, where he feels the inflow of great powers. He recommends this place to people who want to change their lives. I'd like to tell people that if they haven't got enough money for expensive gyms or fitness centers, this place has really got the energy all around. Just come here and start imitating this muscle man and other people. It'll give a huge energy potential. Even if you do nothing here, just walk around. You will be already filled up with the egregor of the physical power that reigns here. It's everywhere. Every inch of this air, all this gym, it's impregnated with this physical energy. Every week he cuts out a few hours to come back here. Physical exercises for Ingwar is not just a hobby or his lifestyle. This is a part of the learning process, an element of self-improvement program. This is called the transformation of energy or alchemy of spirit. It is a very important element in my doctrine. Alchemy of spirit is the transformation of energy, when physical energy transforms into the creative one. In turn, creative energy is the highest energy and can be transformed into the financial energy. If a person has no foundation, no basement, then the money cannot appear. Money can only appear when there is a basement, an origin. According to my theory, my classification and doctrine, money and success that accompanies it emerge from the physical energy. Criteria for measurement that a person or a master possesses energy is the fulfillment of certain exercises, poses, gestures, stands. I'd like to show some of these exercises for those people who want to develop their own energy. But I will not show the practicing techniques. I'll just show the result, the outcome. I'm trying to widespread with love and care my own doctrine of magician Ingwar, which involves work with the three components of human nature: physical body, psyche, and emotions. Therefore, according to my classification, a magician must pay proper attention to his physical body, because the body is the bearer of the soul, of the potential. If the body is weak or sick, everything is useless. He is the most unusual magician on the planet, because he doesn't try to surround himself with the feigned mystery. Ingwar is simple and unpretentious in life, and he's not going to hide this. Magic and money have not changed his nature. Ingwar does everything by himself. Cleans home, washes dishes, does the laundry, cooks. That is, Ingwar does everything by himself. And I'd like people to understand that foremost I'm a human. Magic is wonderful, witchcraft is fine, evil spirits, demons, cemeteries, it's very exciting. But there are everyday necessities. And if a magician cannot handle all these things, then who should? It requires certain conditions, and I try to devote one day in a week to put things in order. And once a week I spend 3 or 4 hours on cleaning. When I see some dirty dishes in the kitchen, I get a certain motivation to clean up the mess. Those who watch this film might think that I position myself as a perfect man. I strongly object. I am a tough man, sometimes cruel. I don't hide that. I am rude to those who encroach upon my right to live as I want. For details, you can read my reproof to lovely ladies, which is called Season's Greetings from Ingwar to Special Women. I'm also intolerant about mistakes of subordinates, and I don't avoid human weaknesses and passions that some people consider to be immutable.
Когда я посмотрел передачу Гордона с Муромовым «Яблоки на снегу», помните эту песню?
Once I watched a TV program with the popular Russian singer Muromov. I was really shocked to discover that Muromov has fucked about 3,000 girls, and I did not know that he was a great fucker. And I wanted to ask Muromov a few questions like, so you fucked 3,000 girls in 40 years, but how many girls could you fuck in one night, in one go, so to speak? Well, I had 8 girls in one night in Thailand. It's a very, very unique story. 8 girls in one night. One girl in half an hour, the second one in 15 minutes, the third one. When I saw those dancing beauties, it was something extraordinary. I had a new feeling. One-on-one, all looked the same, chiseled, well coiffured. I spent about $100 for each girl. And I don't know if this can happen to me again in my life. I'm not going to shock anyone with my revelations. Quite the contrary, I want to encourage people who mistrust their own strength and argue with those who believe that passion for love is a brute lust. If it's natural, it's normal. The main is to afford yourself the realization of desires. Any desire except that contradicts the law. My attitude towards prostitution is very neutral. I refer to love from the logical part of the brain, and I'm all for love when it stimulates, inspires, encourages and gives me potential. But I don't need love when it annoys me, takes away my strength, emotions, doesn't give me a chance for creative work. Sex. There is such sex, and I had that kind of sex with a girl when afterwards I had a feeling of flying in the sky. But in the pursuit of bright feelings and carnal pleasures, you can run into a very serious danger. Someone would think that I'm hinting at venereal diseases, and they might be right, but only at some part. As a doctor, I know perfectly well that there can be physical diseases as well as mental illnesses. And as a magician, I also know that there is an evil that gets into a body and eats it from the inside. I also had two girls when I got my penis inside her, and after I came, I don't know what happened. I started to feel drowsiness, nervousness, powerless, nauseous. I wanted so badly that girl to go away and never see her again. I just wanted to lift her up by her panties and without saying a word, throw her out. Those types of girls are so-called witches, or my sisters, by mutual faith and blood. To date, I have managed to take a photo of a devil. I've got a few photos already. I'm one of few magicians to whom this force allowed to take a picture of. I've got a few photos of devils, yes. And I know that there are methods and techniques of inhabiting such devils into a man or a woman. And if this creature is inhabited inside a girl, the energy is sucked from a man like from a pipe when he comes. And then exorcists try to exorcise demons. So what's gonna happen? There is always a contract between the host of the body or the soul with the devil. Demons or devils, while inhabiting a body, do certain work, and in exchange they use the body. They enjoy bodies and get a great kick out of it. Because demons don't belong to a protein form of life. They are not familiar with carnal pleasures. There is another joy. Can you imagine a new weapon for special services? Slip such a girl to the Russian president. Well, Putin fucks her a couple of times, enjoys sex, but fucks her the third time and gets a heart attack or a brain stroke. And there is no evidence, no proof of what happened. Yes, the girl is here, but the demon is invisible. Demons are invisible enemies which are hard to be handled even by the most skillful magician. However, there are other quite tangible and dangerous opponents. Those who are hurting me now will eventually kill me. For that right here, right now, I'm disclosing them, because you, my audience, must know about their existence. I could be murdered and I might won't be able to finish this, and there is a very high possibility that I'll be killed. I settle my own accounts with charlatans in magic. When I was a teenager, I lent money to a man named Nikolai. I was already studied a lot about herbs, knew many of our local psychics and healers. Nikolai was recommended as a very respected professional, and I released on my and my parents' parole, lent big sum of money from my friends. Alas, Nikolai turned out to be a liar and a charlatan. I was deceived when I was in the 11th grade at school. One guy deceived me, and I swore to myself that if I had survived, I would have done anything to not be fooled again. And I studied intentionally plots, techniques, technology of deception and fraud. I met with reputable, professional fraudsters, thieves, ex-convicts. I made friends with them, gained their confidence. I wanted to learn to know them from inside out. Real magicians don't advertise and offer importunately their magical services. Magic is similar to money, they both like quietness. An ordinary mortal, a user, a client can't distinguish a real magician from a charlatan. And it doesn't matter how hard you try, it's impossible because charlatans constantly change and improve the technology. They know how to play on people's feelings. When the Quakery realize that they can earn money at the expense of people's problems, they advertise their services as if they solve issues. Though they work via internet without seeing clients directly. These charlatans spend huge amount of money on advertising on the internet. They're always ahead. I don't use the internet for this purpose, although I have a website, a huge one with the traffic of 1,000 visitors daily, but I never do my work online. And these charlatans get all the customers online. You must be aware when you type at the search engines keywords like magician help, top websites are fraud. When a magician advertises himself, that's the first sign of being a charlatan. The second sign can be the speed and ease of how they perform so-called rituals. Magic is a hard work that requires a tremendous expenditure of energy. After I perform some work, I need to recover at least one day, sometimes 2 or 3. If someone promises to solve everything in 1 hour, you must know you meet a charlatan. What really terrifies and knocks me off completely is the situation when someone does magic without talking to a client. The customer doesn't have a chance to understand who and how he does magic. The transfer is made over the internet and magic is done online. The best magic scenario might be over a phone. That is, he says he's a magician, takes a photo and moves his hands over it. Okay, your problems will be end soon. I'll do today a ritual and we don't even need to meet. Do you understand? It's total nonsense. It's hilarious because a client believes that a magician can solve everything just by a glance at a photograph without a meeting. The client is happy. What a great man. No need to come to another city. Via the phone, the internet, he solves everything. That's A-class. Hey, cast me a spell on that man or woman. And a magician says, he'll do it. After a couple of months, there is still no result. A customer calls that magician, but he's abroad, or there are only his followers, or he's busy. That means he says in a delicate way, fuck off. You get the third signal when it's too late to change anything. That means danger, threat, blackmail.
Попался жесткий.
If they get a smart or tough client, a charlatan starts to blackmail him and say something like this. I know where you live, I know where your car is, and tomorrow I'll disclose all information about you and that bitch you wanted to bewitch. Tomorrow, everyone will know and watch photos on social networks. So darling, transfer me, I'd say 15 or 20,000 bucks. And if you don't, I'll display all your nasty photos online. And it is good that some deceived people share this information, so I know their stories. They ask for my help. And I say, no, I cannot help you out, because you are dealing with a professional charlatan, and he is blackmailing. That is, there is one way out: to pay and negotiate with him.
Заплатить, договориться с ним.
You can be on the safe side to avoid charlatans if you follow my advice. Never contact them. Primordial, separate the wheat from the chaff.
Единственный вариант это
The only option is to talk to people about it, just to inform them that it exists. People, remember, if you make a visit to a magician, first you should study everything what's possible about him. You can meet up with his friends, find out who his parents are, how he lives, how he earns money, how he came to magic. Before you make a request, please find out information about his life biography. And after exploration, when you find no bullshit there, make your request, please. But not by the phone. Come to his place directly and make sure he's not wasted or high when he works with you.
вас будет принимать.
Do not underestimate charlatans. They're inveterate criminals, but it is a sin to fear them.
Во-первых, я не боюсь смерти. Я всегда везде это подчеркиваю. Как-то вы спрашивали, знаю ли я,
Firstly,
когда я умру.
I
Я
always
сказал, знаю
emphasize
или не
this:
знаю.
I'm not
Почему?
afraid
Потому
of
что я
death.
могу это избежать.
You ask already if I knew when I die. I said both. I knew and I
Просто не
didn't.
делать то, что я
How
делаю.
come? Because I can avoid it. How can I avoid this? To stop doing what I'm doing. Just stop. But I can't. I can't afford to pass by carrion. I won't kick it. I simply must say straight, you are carrion. This carrion is constantly growing and growing. There is no sense of duty, conscience, or honor for it. It's a real carrion. And it's very unsatisfied with my doings. But this carrion cannot come to me and say directly, because it's afraid. It's likely that carrion tries to set me up, and it's likely that I'll die. Can I stop it? Yes, I can. I need to stop to expose this carrion. But I'll never stop. I always say to fuck off in plain words, and I do it by writing articles. I show their names, I show their pictures, I expose their plots. Sometimes even customers ask me for help, so I take a situation under control. I guarantee their safety. And if they don't mind, I can even light them up. I help them to pay back credits which they were forced to take. Charlatans exceed in number by hundreds to real magicians. Our community is small, but every member of this community is a diamond that shines a blinding light. I would like to have time in this life, in this incarnation, in this body, to create the religion of magicians and make it accessible to people of post-Soviet space. And I have done a lot of work over this. That is, I'm working on my religion, the religion of magicians or religion of mind and system. I have already patented this name, and there is a lot of work done to this matter. Ingwar is the first who in many years managed to gather magicians under one roof in his black castle. April 25th, 2009, there was the first magic ball for the last 100 years, and I hosted this ball together with Luris. Ingwar's book, The Magic of Hypnosis, was presented at this ball. This event drew attention to the intellectual elite of the country. There, at the ball, Ingwar for the first time met with the famous restaurator Nikolai Tishchenko. This meeting has changed a lot in his life. Many politicians were businessmen and oligarchs. Mr. Tishchenko was one of them. I filmed the whole process, and then, when I was watching the video, I really paid lots of attention to this. I saw tremendous similarity. The haircut, cheekbones, oval face, eyes, nose, facial expressions, gestures. I was very surprised. I had never been to Richelieu restaurant before. I found out who Tishchenko was, learned that he was a co-owner of many restaurants, restaurator, and I became. So Ingwar became a regular visitor to one of the capital's most respected restaurants. For him, this place is a model of what brings the harmony into life, gives a feeling of fullness of life. I noticed that there is a special aura, the atmosphere. Here's something unusual in interaction between a client and the waiter. And I realized that Tishchenko was the one who created it. So I began to study more thoroughly about him. Why? I was very surprised that we had very similar physical appearance. And I really liked that place. I felt very comfortable there. For Ingwar, gourmandise is not just about food. It is one part of a whole, the quality mark, the element of the foundation on which the general atmosphere of the facility rests. The cuisine is outstanding, and there is what can surprise even experienced gourmets. I'm not a gourmet, I always order here the same meal, consommé, a light veal chop. That is, I'm very unsophisticated. I don't need variety. But there were a couple of times when I broke my tradition. I remember ordering an octopus. I liked it a lot. I also liked shrimps. They were very, very tasty. There are also some exclusive dishes here. Every man must have his favorite place for rest and contemplation. It is also a part of the success, the goal toward the one should strive for. I feel the atmosphere, comfort, and my recreation starts here. Today he can afford a luxury vacation, he can leave all things behind and fly to any country in the world because he's earned that right due to hard work for so many years. He followed his own precepts and his path led him to success. In every country I go to, I buy a magnet which brings me some memories. And all magnets collected here represent all places I've visited, what I've seen or tasted, places where I opened my mind, meditated. I've been to 40 countries, but I still think that's not a lot. I want to surpass tourists who by the age of 60 visited 118 countries. I love visiting temples, monasteries and knowledge bearers. I always look out for these people in all countries, cities and places. These people never simply share the knowledge, but many of them can feel me. And when we meet, just by asking a few questions, they immediately understand who stands in front of them. Some even do not ask questions and we start communicating. He travels a lot, flies from one end of the planet to another. At first glance, these movements are chaotic and random, but in fact, each destination is a part of one program. Ingwar is interested in people and places that give him food for thought and materials for important projects. Traveling for me is a part of my job. It has always been coupled with visiting some very important landmarks. Mostly, I visit local temples and monasteries. Wherever I go, I am primarily interested in religion and shrines of that country. That is, I need to understand the heart of the subconscious, how a nation lives. And it is always a religion. I visit a lot of places like this during my travel. But I am primarily interested in what these people are into. Because for me, it's important to compare my life with the lives of others. You can believe me, just because I was a nobody and climbed up to become a well-off man. I earned enough to buy an apartment, a car, a cottage house. Besides, I have a number of differences from thousands of coaches on the success and prosperity. First, during 20 years I have been studying the art of magic and achieved success. Now I am one of the most famous magicians in CIS. Second, the goal of my doctrine is not to add up some money on your success, but to motivate you to move towards the desired. Third, I travel a lot and continually study and share gained knowledge with everyone who is interested. Fourth, I obtained MS in surgery and psychiatry. Fifth, I systematically implement my dreams into life. Sixth, despite huge workload, I am able to devote time to my hobbies: martial arts, volleyball, skiing, horse riding, fishing, hunting, traveling to places of power, reading books. Seventh, I have my own conception of sin, and poverty is a vice. Eighth, I have a healthy lifestyle without bad habits like drinking, smoking, drug use. Ninth, I developed a technique of studying the nature of success which gives dual knowledge about prosperous people on one hand and about the suffering on the other. 10th, pathologically I am right. 11th, I'm always ready for a constructive dialogue. From the book, you can do everything. Working with subtle matters, magician Ingwar remains a strict pragmatist. In his book, You Can Do Everything, he quoted several fundamental commandments that were actually disproved by him. One of them says, "To be rich, you have to be kind and merciful." According to Ingwar's concept, kindness and mercy often lead to a sect, but rational egoism and strong will lead to the success. Magician rejects another postulate, a well-known commandment, "Thou shalt not make into thee any graven image." During travels, he sought and found people who could follow. They are strong leaders who achieved success, and their success became crucial for them and for the countries they served faithfully. Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan is the man who created the United Arab Emirates. When I was there, I was full of a sensation of understanding that man and of the love that the whole nation expressed for him. He is gone, not among us. How can people love him? They respect, appreciate him, because that man did a lot for his country. Next, the Georgian Prime Minister Ivanishvili. When I was in Georgia and studied thoroughly who Ivanishvili was and how the nation respected him, I had a very strong feeling of uprising. Next, I like Lukashenko's policy. They all are examples of a force, examples of a strong ruler. The president must be confident, powerful, strong-willed, and all his appearance must show who the man of the country is. But if he's endowed with different traits, people will live under foreign influence. At the beginning of the film, we mentioned about the crystal which could be grown in an ordinary glass. Under certain conditions, by heating or cooling, a crystal could be obtained from any substance, or to be more precise, from a solution, melt, vapor or powder. The process does not take place immediately. Firstly, a few of the randomly moving molecules or atoms are collected in the order which is necessary for the formation of the crystal lattice. Such a group of atoms or molecules is called embryo. Typically, embryos are formed in the solution in the presence of any crystallization centers. Dirty spots on the plate surface with solution, dust, fine crystal of the solute can serve as crystallization centers. After a month or two, you'll get a handmade crystal, which doesn't differ from the natural formation. Crystallization is the analogy of crystal. Here it is. If the crystal is here, that means it exists. You can't say it's not here. Crystallization is what a person already has. The crystal is growing. For Ingwar, the understanding of crystallization is fundamental. His doctrine is based on it. Reaching goals is only possible if a person cultivates necessary qualities, went through obstacles and applied received knowledge with right intention. Without obtaining these qualities, critical attitude towards yourself and in-depth analysis of the received information, any knowledge is a dead weight. If you want to develop and grow, you need to follow certain activities. If you start doing something else and hope to reach a result, nothing will happen. Therefore, the main pillar in my doctrine, the main recipe, and the main ingredient in the recipe is the technique of the right thought. Firstly, you have to distinguish the concept of thought from the concept of feeling, fantasy, or dreaming. Secondly, it's the knowledge. Live and learn every second. Life is so versatile, and if people don't seek to acquire knowledge, they'll end up nowhere. Thirdly, it is a discipline. Do certain actions a certain number of times. And the fourth is a very clear vision of what you want to get. Every significant action of Ingwar's life is written in his diary, so he's able to analyze his actions for any period of his life and understand what went wrong and why. Thereafter, he doesn't make same mistakes twice. In order to analyze if your thoughts are right or wrong, you should keep a diary. People are so deluded with their own lies that they can't differ dreams from thoughts. Only those who are strict self-observers, who work very hard on their growth, who have mentors, because it's impossible to monitor yourself. Only those can understand the difference between thoughts and feelings. There are no trifles in self-work. Each quality is one ingredient of a substance from which a crystal grows, a jewel called the magic of success, or just magic. Ingwar draws an analogy with the Soviet cartoon Happy Birthday, which he recalls from his childhood, about the beavers that baked a cake for a friend, but they didn't use right ingredients. The cake looked very delicious, but actually was completely inedible. There is a clear analogy of this cartoon to my doctrine. In what way? There is a central concept in my doctrine called crystallization. Crystallization of qualities. If someone wants to do something in magic, he must use a force, must know how to use this force, how to take upon this force, and how to achieve the desired result. That is, if he's got all the components, then he might be successful. If he actively practices, but without one component, not a damn thing will happen. The same, as the beavers in the cartoon added pepper instead of salt, salt water instead of fresh, sand instead of flour. The idea is the quality of the soul, of a character. If a person wants to get something or reach somewhere, he should not dream, but to take certain ingredients, mix them, and bake a cake. He makes efforts to improve himself every day. He learns and does tests on right thought and action. He's a strict examiner. The rate scale is from 1 to 7. I rank myself on a scale from 1 to 7, and yet I know that I can make mistakes evaluating some actions. For instance, I can put a score of 3 or 4 on a 7-grade scale, but actually it is 0 or 1. I'm always result and time-oriented. Just results can judge whether I gave myself a right grade, let's say a year ago, 5 years ago, a month, a week ago. If you want to achieve a certain goal, you must clearly know how to bake a loaf of bread. You need to use the following: flour, salt, etc. That is a clear process, it cannot be changed. Like in the cartoon with the cake, the beavers did everything properly but used wrong ingredients. And they had a beautiful cake, but inedible. Too salty, sandy, etc. Therefore, a 7-grade scale evaluation. Some people, after watching this film, will think of evaluating themselves, so they need to understand that only the result and time can determine correct evaluation. There is no bare theory and subjective opinion in all information and guidelines given by Ingwar. I'm not reinventing the wheel, I just return students and followers who are interested in this doctrine to what we had already. In reality, it is the deepest systematization of what humanity has already been given. To teach others, it is necessary to learn first and gain knowledge. For me, as a scientist and a magician, books are not just a source of valuable information. It's a way to widespread knowledge, a tool to transfer the most important words and thoughts ever imprinted on paper. So I write summarizing my own experience and the experience of the wisest magicians and philosophers. I publish the best of what has been written over the centuries by great people who knew how to obtain magical powers. These books are like a bridge that I'm building between the abyss of ignorance and unbelief. He summed up the best, tested on himself and developed a short formula for the success with a universal grading scale.
Есть такая формула 28 равно 4 умножить на 7.
There is a well-known formula, 28 equals 4 times 7. It can be found in a variety of sacred doctrines. This formula was not my idea. I'm not a dreamer. I always emphasize, I'm not a dreamer, not a storyteller. This formula is presented in Kabbalism, in numerology, it's presented in Islam, occultism, Hinduism. A famous Russian philosopher and occultist, Yelena Blavatsky, also mentioned a lot this formula. So, what does equation 28 times 4 times 7 mean? 28 days of 4 weeks or of 1 lunar month, 7 music notes, 7 days of a week, 7 colors of a rainbow, and 4 is 4 weeks. What's the origin of the number 7? This is a unique formula. The formula 28 equals 4 times 7 is the basis of the universe. People should use it. I always evaluate myself and tell my students to do so. My doctrine shows clearly, if a person doesn't see his actions from the side, if a person cannot analyze himself, if he cannot punish himself, that person can't grow. One of the ingredients which we project on any action must be self-criticism. Magic gave me strength. It became a tool to achieve a goal. But the result was forged by my own hands. It's not magic, it's the reality, and I'd like to invite everyone who wants to achieve more than I did. Let's define precisely the definition of magic and link to this word my own definition. So everyone who is watching the film and interested to understand what Ingwar means by magic, let's make a definition for it. What is magic for me? How do I perceive it? Well, for me, magic is a science. Magic is a science, but science is primarily linked to the result and duration of someone's life. If someone lives like a scamp, scum or jerk, well, what kind of magic can be there? If he hasn't done a damn thing for himself, what could he teach others? Besides, what has he reached? If he walks and falls apart, if he smokes, drinks, sniffs, how can he mentor students? None of the students can become different. This film has been made for 7 years. Most of the interviews were filmed on the eve of the events that shook Ukraine to the ground. Ingwar recently made a tour around his homeland. all Donetsk region, trying to find the source of the uneasiness. He felt the approach of death, and he thought that death would come only after him. So he was in a hurry to finish the film, trying to summarize everything that was done by him during a quarter of a century. And his final words are surprisingly tuned with events that dramatically changed the history of the country and the world.
Я знаю точно.
I know for sure that I can be gone at any moment. And most importantly, I'm ready for this. I don't cling to life. Today, the question for me is not important at all. So answering your question, if I know when I die, the answer is, I don't care. Thousands of people listen attentively to this man. Many follow him. Why? Because there is a great power behind him. There is faith. All his words, thoughts, and doings integrate, and this integration brought him to the top. I'm willing to gain most of information and knowledge about this world in order to share this knowledge with others. I wish people could change, become wiser. It's really hard and painful for me to realize that people are manipulated. And they even don't see and don't know about that. They are manipulated not by extraordinary forces, but by ordinary people who are a bit wiser. It really means a lot to me that I can do whatever it takes to make people aware, so they won't be manipulated easily as they are now. I'd like our people to become smarter and wiser. Hasten to do good, to sow among people wise and internal. Ihor Bombushkar.